So I'm like, oh, you're going to die.
This is Kenton Claremont from Train to Hunt, and you're watching the Gritty Bowmen.
Is the only thing that's got me anywhere is hard work. That's all I got. I'm not the best shot. I'm not anything. So all I know is to work hard. So I can't really back off of it because that got me to the dance.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep riding it. All I can do is give all I got.
Yeah. Calling you fat and the macronutrient fat.
That's
we
right.
should have called it like oil.
We should have called it awesome.
Yeah. When did you know you really liked Cameron?
We became buddies like immediately.
Like
Once
right
we
off the
became
bat?
Friends. Yeah. Well, I had him on my podcast. It's the first time I met him, and he brought me a Hoyt bow. So how could I not love him?
I did.
What did you think when that happened?
I thought I made it.
I love it.
I thought I finally made it.
I am not joking.
I do not talk with my hands. I don't know what you're talking about.
I do not.
With my hands? My hands?
What?
I just Randy Black Eagle.
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
I just told your wife that we brought a bow and arrow for you to shoot before we
they
leave.
want you to shoot it.
Oh, I am so in. And Roark, for some reason, he was like, hey, he's like, Dad, you need to teach me how to hunt so we can get meat for our family. And I was like, I think Daddy needs to learn how to hunt first.
That's awesome. Yeah.
One of the things I never want to say, and I even think this with life, is I never want to say, like, what if? Like, what? I hate that. I hate that feeling. What if I would have done this? Or what if I would have just tried this? Or what if? What if? And there's very few things that I say what if about. Very few things. And that gives me a lot of peace of mind. So that helps give me drive because I don't want to ever say what if.
On this episode of Gritty Bowmen, we hang out with CrossFit legend Chris Spealler. Legend might seem like a strong word to some, but to me and many others, Chris Spealler is the epitome of the word legend. The dictionary says a legend is, quote, a famous or important person who is known for doing something extremely well. And by this definition, Chris Spealler is, by all accounts, a legend. Spealler is a former college wrestler from a family of standout athletes. Chris Spealler quickly became one of CrossFit's leading ambassadors, impressing and inspiring newcomers to the sport with his underdog spirit, unequaled work ethic, and warm personality. A competitor at the very first CrossFit Games in 2007, he was the only performer from the 2007 Games who was also in the 2014 Games. Spealler continues to train and coach at CrossFit Park City in Utah, where he lives with his wife Sarah and their children Roark and Myla, and where we recorded this podcast. I'm a huge fan of Chris Spealler for 100 reasons, not least of which is his commitment to his family and his faith. And so, it was natural to include all of his family on this podcast. Spealler's wife, Sarah, shares how they met and began dating, which is a wild story in and of itself. Chris shares his fitness knowledge, and we talk about mental toughness, something Spealler knows and understands all too well. Hunting is altogether new to Chris, so I asked the Gritty Bowmen community to welcome the Spealler family into the hunting life. Chris has just started his own podcast called Icon Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more about fitness or just like Chris Spealler, do me a favor and go and subscribe to his podcast. I especially enjoyed his recent podcast with Matt Chan, a CrossFit Games athlete who is, in fact, also a bow hunter. Check it out. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. We're in Park City, Utah at CrossFit Park City.
That's great.
With Chris Spealler and his wife, Sarah. And for those of you who don't know who Chris Spealler is, multiple times CrossFit Games competitor. Seven times. These guys are hardcore fans.
Geeks, that's all right.
So I've got my sister Katie and my brother-in-law Bryce here. And we ran into you and Myla, your daughter Myla.
Yes.
And we ran into you we were at the Total Archery Challenge event at Snowbird here in Utah, and we ran into you there, and I was like, dude, is that Chris Spealler? So I had to go up and introduce myself, and you were gracious enough to let us come down here to your box and do a podcast. So pretty excited to be here and to pick your brain. For our audience, today I want to get into a little bit like some of them will know who you are, and so they'll want to
Sure.
kind of ask some CrossFit type questions. But then there's a lot of our audience that I think would like to learn a little bit about. One thing I try to push with our audience is fitness and health and wellness, and so a lot of what I do to be in shape. I'm 42. Is I really want to have a lot of strong connective tissue. Want to have good mobility.
Yeah.
And movement is a big part of that. Correct movement and something that and strength. And so I kind of want to get into some ideas on that a little bit, and then also like mental toughness, because to compete in the games like you have at your level, there's got to be some
A little bit.
yeah, there's got to be some just you can just block out the pain and do it. So I kind of want to get into that too. But before we do that, would you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I grew up. I was born in Salt Lake. My parents are from outside of Philly, and they moved out here in the 70s just to kind of get away and experience the mountains and hang out. And my sister and I were born out here, and they had to move back for work, but they would always either come back on a family vacation or check stuff out. And I remember being a kid and thinking, like, why do I not live in the mountains? Like, why do I live outside of Philadelphia and not live in the mountains? So it was.
This is an amazing place.
Oh my gosh, it's awesome. So I just fell in love with the mountains as a kid, and kind of over the course of time, I ended up, going to school, and I stayed. I grew up wrestling. I started when I was 5 or 6, and I did that. And I think that's kind of part of the transition of mental toughness and CrossFit and all those things.
Yeah.
And then wrestled in college at a little school called Lock Haven University in Pennsylvania. And then as soon as I was done that, I moved out here, kind of knowing probably that I would stay, and really realizing that once I got here, I just never went home.
Yeah.
And then Sarah moved out
I grew up
year
in
and a half,
Maryland.
2 years later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet? What's the story there?
Yeah, you can tell us.
Yeah, I want to hear it. What year was it?
I
Because
think
it's wrong on our
99.
rings.
It's definitely wrong.
It's wrong on our wedding rings.
Yeah. But we know it was 1999.
In June. Or
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
June.
we volunteered at a Young Life camp up in upstate New York, Lake Saranac.
Wow.
And it was just, you just volunteer as a college kid. And I went up with a friend, and him and his sister were there, just part of like the big group of kids. And so yeah, we worked at a Young Life camp. I worked in the craft shack. My friend worked on the ropes course with Chris, and his sister was a lifeguard up there.
Yeah.
And so that's how we initially met, I guess. I thought he was a pretty cute guy, but I knew I was only there for a month, and I'm like, I don't even know half these people anyway. I'm like, so there's no point in being like, gaga over a guy. So, it was just a really good month, and that's how that went. And then, 5 years later, I found.
No way.
Yes.
5 years?
Really.
So you met her though at the camp, at the Young Life camp,
And he
you
thought-
took notice.
No, not at all. No, he did not. No, which is fine.
I thought she was
And that's
really
fine.
cool.
But he
But
worked-
I was
yeah.
just like, working for the week, for the month, and just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm
You're
not
there
going to see any of
serving-
these people
yeah.
again.
Right.
Know? It's like,
You're there
You're there
serving.
serving
yeah.
kids, so
Yeah.
it's just like whatever. Yeah. So 5 years later, I found this random paper that had everyone's email address on it from that whole month working at the camp, and I just started emailing everyone. I'm like, hey, how's everyone doing? This is Sarah from the Craft Shack. What's everyone up to? Whatever. So a bunch of people responded or whatever. He was one of them. And we just started emailing back and forth. And when I went to that camp, I just was at a community college in my hometown. And then eventually I went to a school in Pennsylvania, Shippensburg University. And so this is the end of my the end of my undergrad, and where we kind of reconnect. And so we just started emailing back and forth. And he just emails that, hey, if you ever want to come out here, you have a
you know how you say
place
that?
to stay. Okay, just hold on. Okay, yes, continue
You know how
on.
you say that as just a
Just to be
courtesy?
nice?
Yeah, And everyone, it's kind of like, like, hey, have you ever, and I mean
This
it,
is
but
the
at the
best
same
story
time.
ever.
Well, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I didn't really even think anything of it until. So then my spring break is coming up, and I'm like, for the love, like I've never been on an airplane at this point in my life.
Oh, wow.
And all my other friends' spring breaks never matched up with mine because we were just all over. So they would go do fun stuff, and I'd be like home working or something. I'm like, lame. So I was like, hey, I'm thinking about coming out. And he was like, okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Come on out.
So I booked my flight, and I'm like, holy crap, what am I doing? I haven't seen this kid in 5 years.
He could be a stalker.
He could be like psycho, right?
Right.
But from emails, I'm like, well,
Clearly.
he seems like he's normal still. I don't know. So I booked my flight, and then I call and let him know, hey, I have my flight, whatever, here are the dates. And then he lets me know. Yes.
This is not like
I love it.
Here, move that mic a little closer.
This is not like me.
It's not at all. And this is not like me either, to
So-
fly out and see some random person I met 5 years ago.
In that window of time of talking with Sarah, I had kind of dated another girl, Sarah, in college. And it was, I would call her Swimmer Sarah because she was a swimmer. And this is Sarah, my Sarah. And I told her the same thing, like, just in small talk, like, hey, if you ever want to come out, you have a place to stay, blah, blah, blah.
No.
Yeah.
So Swimmer Sarah and Runner Sarah come out the same week.
Well, I gave them, wait.
Oh, wow.
I gave them the
Dude,
heads up.
what were you thinking?
No, I gave them the heads up.
So good.
I was like, hey, here's the
You're just
deal.
having your own CrossFit competition here. Girls go at it.
Oh.
The winner takes all.
I was like, hey, I invited both of you. I said you could come out, and both of you took me up on the offer, and it happens to be
Same week.
the same
Oh,
week. And I just let them know. I said, you are both welcome to still come if you want, but I want to let you know that,
How awkward.
like, yeah.
Okay, so-
and they both came out.
Yes. So once he told me that, though, I kind of had like a little freak out, like, what am I doing? But then when he said someone else is going to be there, I was like, okay, another girl. That's cool. Okay. So he gave up his entire room and bathroom to us, and we kind of took over. And he's just
Yeah.
upstairs
I
on the
slept on
couch.
the couch. They
Yeah.
slept in my room.
And so I think his roommates were like, what is going on? There are two girls flying in. So how many? It was Tyler and Paulie?
Tyler, Paul,
and Matt.
Bost,
Did
yeah.
they come down to the airport?
No, just Tyler and I.
Just Tyler. Okay. So, yeah, we fly in, and
This is crazy.
Chris,
Right?
you were like super cool apparently.
You're just like,
I mean, stupid. Yeah.
Ladies'
we,
man.
Yeah, we fly in, and they picked us up, and we, drove up to his place.
and how old are you guys about this time?
24, 23,
Mid. Okay.
25,
20
21,
22?
early 20s.
22.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get there, and then what?
So we get there, and it was just a fun week.
Yeah, I had kind of
mean-
like, people say this, but I had kind of a funny feeling. Hey, if this girl's coming out to see me, like she probably is interested. And I honestly had a weird feeling.
Like dense
I
as a
was-
rock,
I know,
right? Like,
right?
I think she might
I
like
think
me.
she might, yeah. But I had kind of a weird feeling. This might be the one. This weird.
Yeah. Just kind of.
Yeah, when she
intuition.
started walking through the security, I was like, wow, I don't remember her like that.
Dang, girl.
Wow, yeah. And I was enjoying my time with my Sarah, and
And
I was
then
like,
remember-
where's Swimmer Sarah?
We
Like,
didn't know where
is
she was.
She must be running late, like not paying attention, and I'm looking around, and I was like, oh my gosh, she flies into the other terminal. So she was already at the other baggage
Just-
claim, like waiting for us while I had been kind of, so I had to run over there. I'm sorry, But, yeah. I know, it's awesome. It's a bow and arrow. It's amazing.
And he's going to shoot it in a little bit.
There's a doggy out there? Yeah, it's because the vet next door.
You got exotic sands, too. I mean,
Oh, yeah, the
hello.
Sandman. We don't know what he puts in his sand.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Wow.
I was like, this is a little random
Right.
here. Like,
Yes.
No, you should probably leave them alone for now because sometimes 6 doggies are over there. So maybe let them just walk. They're probably trying to pee or poo.
There's just one.
I know, they might be trying to go potty. But yeah, so so then the rest of the week basically, okay. So, no, probably not right now. No petting right now. I know you do. But when you get home, if you're a good girl, when you get home, I'll let you
Cali
knock
cat.
on Callie's door.
Yes, you can knock on Cali Cat's door.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Myla loves cats.
Does she?
Yeah.
Daddy doesn't. Yeah, so we let her knock on the neighbor cat door.
Yes.
But yeah, over the rest of the week, yeah, you keep asking them to knock on the door.
Even at 9 o'clock at night last night. We're like, no, probably not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so over the course of the week, Swimmer Sarah went home early, and then Sarah
Well,
and I got to
could
hang
tell
out another
Swimmer
couple
Sarah
days.
liked you, and I was like, you know what? I'm just here to hang out. So whatever.
Let's not get into a.
We don't
Yeah.
even. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
then,
it was
yeah.
cool though, yeah.
She was fun, and we skied and just
And then the
hung out with
same
his roommates.
thing. My roommates were
Okay,
like, "Hey,
so-
if you ever want to, you should come out for the summer. You can stay with us." And she's like, "Okay."
Okay,
just
well, a
came
lot
out
of
for the
stuff had to
summer.
happen for that to happen.
I know, but you
Okay.
did though. Just took him up on the offer again.
Yeah, and before I came out for the whole summer, he was trying to date a bunch of girls.
Because I was like, I think she might be the one, so I need to make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I
having said
completely
that,
understand.
I failed miserably at dating any girls. I mean, I think I went on like 2 dates, and they were like, "This guy's lame." Yeah. So
You got a good
you got
one.
the winner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So when you guys finally did, start dating.
Okay, so that summer, finally, like halfway through the summer, I was like, what am I? Like, are we dating? What the heck are we? Like, 1 is a stranger, and 10 is like dating. I was like, where are we on this scale?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I think you're an 8.975.
Which is pretty high.
That is.
That's pretty high.
I would say that's
Right?
pretty solid.
Like, that's real solid for a scale of 1 to 10. That's real good.
Oh my gosh, 8.975. Seriously?
Nailed it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so by the end of the summer, I was supposed to go back and start my master's
Yeah.
back at that school, and I had one more year left to run. And then I tried to switch majors, and that wasn't working out, and I had to reapply. But anyway, so I just pretty much called my parents and said, hey, I'm just going to stay here. So I kind of just pushed all that away, and then just found a school out here and got my master's in elementary ed.
Wow.
And yeah, during that summer, you were working at the ski shop, at the bike shop.
Full on ski bum.
I had like so many random jobs because I was taking care of
You were
rent back
money
at college.
bags, though.
Well, yeah, I got a nanny job that paid under the
gosh.
table.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I was so poor. I was making $9 an hour working 4 days a week.
The nanny
Because
job
she
helped.
just cash left and right. Cash.
Cash money.
Nanny jobs are good.
So did you think? At what point were you like? Did you know he was a guy you wanted? to
Like
be
by
with?
the
End of the summer or
I
before?
mean, like when I came out, I was like, well, I kind of knew. I mean, come on.
Right. Here's a
But-
man's man.
But definitely the summer, for sure, the summer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I moved out. My mom drove me out with my car full of stuff, and we dated for 2 years and got married.
So what were the things about Sarah that just made it for you? Besides the physical.
Right.
part,
Yeah. I think largely just like the element of fun and the element just like so comfortable around other people. And just for us, our faith is a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, that for us, for myself, and for Sarah.
Obviously,
as a
you
Christian.
volunteered at Young Life.
Yeah, and as a believer and a follower of Christ like that, seeing that side of Sarah was, obviously just a huge part of just the compatibility and comfort level. And
We met our spouses at church too. So
Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Right there.
yeah,
Aw.
so it was good, and all that. And I think all this time spending with, with one another and just like, that was a really fun
Heck
time
yeah.
in life.
Just hanging
Really
out.
fun. I mean,
Yeah.
this is fun too. It's just different.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was really fun, and just getting to know her on that level was, it was so easy. And even
Yeah, it
still,
should
like,
be
not
easy.
to jinx us
Just
or anything,
easy.
marriage is a challenge, but it really is, like, we're really blessed. It really is generally very easy.
Yeah.
It's the relationship.
Best friends. It just
Yeah.
flows.
For sure.
Yeah. It's kind of how it is for
We still like each other too.
That's good.
our
We're kind of
spouses.
on 18 years
Oh,
here
wow.
next month.
Nice.
so-
Congrats.
I'm 19
And you
years.
guys, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
That's
not
awesome.
there
3
yet.
kids and yeah. So what about you?
Life.
What about you, Sarah, with Chris? Like, what was it like?
I mean, he's super cute.
was when I had hair.
He had
Brian knows
hair,
it, too.
like
Yeah.
lots of it, and you could just, it was just all over.
Dude, I did too.
Yeah, but now he has this beard that says hi to me. I don't know. Okay, I love his dark circles under his eyes.
Yeah.
Love
Hate
them.
'em.
I love them.
Hate 'em.
Love them.
I'm getting those as I get older. They're just sort of permanent.
Just keep
I've had
them.
them
Yeah.
some of the time I was like a fetus up there. Always.
No, but I just like how we find humor in anything, and I love that he loves the Lord, and it's just fun being around him. I mean, Yeah.
from the outside looking in, obviously you're a tough competitor, and if just that's admirable. But also, what's easy to see is you're also like you with your kids and your family. You seem like a very how do you say it? Like just kind person, right?
Oh,
Kind
thanks,
human
man.
being, and it's pretty neat
try.
to see that like just positive all the time.
Thanks, man.
So it's easy to follow you guys and get kind of like sucked into that and really enjoy watching you. And then your posts on Instagram, which people, what's your Instagram handle?
Spealler.
Spealler. So people can follow that, and you just post the cool stuff that's inspirational, motivational, positive, and then you can make fun of poor movement and share your knowledge by proper movement and all that, which is something I wanted to get into today.
Yeah.
So, so you got anything you want to ask real quick, Kate? Anymore?
I did. I picked their brain. That's
Okay.
the
That's
meat of this conversation. Right
it's good for you. You're done.
Yeah.
Huh? That's it.
So, on the hunting side, have you ever hunted, Chris?
I've actually in college where we grew up was and where I went to school was Central Pennsylvania, and there was nothing out there. And we used to. One of the things that I kind of know how to do, because I think it takes very little skill, is we used to just knock on like Amish farmers' doors and be like, "Hey, do you guys mind if we go dove hunting on your property?"
Yeah.
And most of the time they were just like, "Yeah, go ahead. Just make sure you don't shoot them off the power lines." Really? Okay. So you just sit under the power lines and wait for them to fly in. But dove hunting, in my experience, we just walk through the fields with my buddies with a shotgun, and when we saw them or they flew up, it's just have fun and start shooting doves.
Yeah.
And other than that, I did a little bit of very, very small amount. I went deer hunting maybe once or twice with a rifle, and then I think once with
should I get?
Yeah, sure. Once with a bow, and it was it was something that I enjoyed, but I know very, very little about. Yeah, like overall. I skinned a deer with my buddy, and I was like, "Wow, that's
how
that."
that's
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
we did it like in his garage, hanging it up. And his dad was pretty gnarly, like hunter, and just one of those guys that, on his way to a wrestling meet one time, he hit a deer with his Cadillac. He had this old Cadillac, and he hit a deer with a Cadillac, and it wasn't dead. But for him in Central Pennsylvania, like that's meat, that's good meat, and that's food. And I know you can't. Yeah, hang on one sec. And he hit the deer, still wasn't dead. So he took his tire iron out of the back of his Cadillac and killed it with the tire iron and put it in the trunk of the Cadillac. And he came to the wrestling meet with a button-down shirt and blood on his shirt. And we were like, "What happened, Vic? Like, what's going on?" And he's just like, "No, I found a deer. Like, I hit a deer and I found it, and it's good meat, and it's in the trunk, and I'm going to go home." I mean, that's where I went to college.
Yeah, that makes sense to me in an
odd way.
Meat is so good. I love wild game meat. And Stephen Ranella tells that story. He's a hunting guy, and he's a kid in Midwest, and they hit a deer. Dad gets out, big buck. They throw it in the back of their like SUV or whatever, their Jeep, and then they start driving down the road. Well, it wasn't dead.
Oh no!
So,
it's like Tommy Boy.
Yeah, totally. So a few minutes later, it like jumps up, and it's like, and they're like, "Whoa!" And they pull over, and his dad's like some World War I vet who's been through a lot. He just pulls it out, kills it, and then sticks it back in, and like nothing happened. And I think Ranella was like 6 years old. He was just like, whoa, But deer, out there hunting. We got a bow and arrow here for you today. A little recurve for you to shoot afterward to see if we can get you addicted to bow hunting. Because we heard Matt Chan's totally into archery now.
Yeah, it's
But
it's
he's
been
a
fun to
Matthews
watch
guy.
him. Yeah, it's been fun to watch him enjoy that process. And, guys like us that have been so high in the competition, it's nice for us to put our fitness to use outside and do things like that. And for Matt, bow hunting has just been, I think it's just something he really enjoys.
Yeah. It's so neat to get out there and shooting bows is fun. I mean, something I think is primal. Like, we've been shooting bows for a long time and killing animals and eating them.
I haven't.
I like
he hasn't got my
animals.
bow yet, but it's on order, right?
Right. So, but one thing I wanted to talk about today, let's get into this whole thing. I often talk about, on this podcast, I have different people on talking about fitness and how they get in shape for hunting and in the mountains. And to me, I kind of have this thing where I say, well, there's conditioning, like just getting physically fit or conditioned to do something. And then there's this other side of it, which is a foundation where you build like functional strength and to build your conditioning on. So you get like strength and mobility first, and then kind of build your conditioning on top of that. And a lot of guys will get a desk job. They'll be at their desk job. They'll sit there in the off season from archery and stuff or hunting, and they'll eat their donuts and kind of just kind of relax, slack off, and don't really do much. And then before the season starts, they get out and they start running hills and kind of do your traditional sort of
getting out there.
And then they go hunting. And but then they suffer like injuries and they have back pain. I hear a lot of guys say, my knees hurt, I can't do this anymore, my knees hurt, or my back hurts, I can't do this. I have foot problems, plantar fasciitis, stuff like that. I hear this like constantly. And so I kind of say to people, well, do this stuff first, and then, get into the running and the other kind of conditioning on top of that.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on, what are guys doing wrong when it comes to fitness?
I think there's a lot of right. I think there's a lot of right stuff out there. I think it depends on people's goals largely, but I think the big misconception is that, especially, and again, I don't know a ton about it, but from what I do know, bow hunting, it's relatively demanding. It's not, from what I remember, it's not like a rifle where you can kind of sit down and hang out and you see something in the distance. But you have to move around a lot. It feels more like a hunt to me when I did it. And I think people get really one-dimensional, and they feel like, all right, if I need to be good at bow hunting and I need to be good at maybe rucking and longer distance hikes and maybe some light running, that's all I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And there is some value to that, right? And I'm sure guys see that. But that's one piece of the pie. And what I think people neglect is just if we're thinking about just general physical preparedness, and when I think about a hunter, when I think about a law enforcement officer, when I think about a soccer mom, that's what we need, right? Is just what we call GPP. And it's this big, broad base that we can work from. And the reality is the bigger and broader we can make that base, the better we'll be at our specific things. And that could be something like lifting heavy weight, or it could be something like going for a long run. And I think the interesting thing probably with bow hunting is there's elements of that. There's also this element that once you guys get an animal, you have to pack it out. Mm-hmm. And that is a very different demand than someone just running 6 miles a day.
Yeah.
Doing that, or now starting to add external loading with a pack and things like that, it can be pretty repetitive. And I think with anything, too much repetition can cause us to stagnate a little bit in our fitness gains. And I also think that it can also lead to some of the overuse things like you're talking about. My low back hurts, my knees hurt. So having a big base of fitness will only make us better at the specific thing that we want to do.
Typically, about 10% of archery hunters are successful. I don't know what the stats are exactly, but let's say 10% are successful year after year. There's a small percentage that get lucky every 5, 6, 7 years. Those guys, though, that when they shoot something for the first time, like an elk, they've got, let's say they backpacked 4 miles in.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah.
Now they've got to pack out about, let's say they, most guys are probably, let's say they're young, they're throwing 130, 40 pounds on if they can, or or 110. And they're packing that out, and they're going out 4 miles, and they're going back. picking more up and going out 4 miles and coming back.
It's like 3 times.
Like, you're right. So they call some buddies and stuff, and they do it. But what ends up happening is a lot of guys say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. It's too hard.
Yeah.
Or they do that for a season because it's just 1 month. You got 1 month to get it done, and they're going out on weekends, and they finally get an elk, and now they're packing it out. And they come back from that, though, and they're wrecked. Like, they can't go back in for sure. Like, let's say a lot of guys that sort of just do the running thing sometimes, they'll get out there, and it's a different running without, carrying a load is a completely different energy system than running is.
For sure.
What are some of the things like that guys can do or that you recommend people do, let's say a hunter, to get that GPP?
Of course, I'm biased for CrossFit, because it's what I do. And I do think if people do a little bit of education, it's pretty unbeatable when you start to learn the principle behind it, like what the real goals are. So not competitive CrossFit, but just CrossFit. And then along with that, what the best way to help people understand that would be like, okay, if we can back squat, let's say a young guy, right, builds up some serious capacity. He can back squat, 300 pounds. Maybe 400 pounds. Some of these young guys is more. But if you can back squat 350 pounds, how does a pack that weighs 130 feel on your back now? As opposed to if I can only back squat 185 pounds. And then what does that look like over the course of me being able to do that? And not just that, but, okay, well, now I do workouts that are long. I do workouts that are shorter. I use heavyweight. I use lightweight. I do high repetition. I do low repetition. I have body weight movements and weightlifting movements, and I do running. And now all of a sudden, it's like all these elements that we may face out in everyday activity, or in your case, when you guys are bow hunting, I've gone into that. I know what that's like, and that, I think, is where that drop-off rate of people that are maybe like, hey, I don't want to do that again, because it's probably their first exposure to doing anything like that.
Yeah.
Right.
But now if I have some idea of what that's like and I'm a little bit prepared for it, we're going to be able to handle that better mentally and physically, and now chances of us wanting to go out again are probably way higher.
You guys went over fallen logs last time.
We were in blowdowns, a bunch of trees, and we had to.
There's an old forest fire.
One-legged squats.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff like that.
With about 80-pound packs all day long, up hills. And it was literally like climbing logs, walking down, we're walking logs, 30-foot logs.
Yeah.
Just like just fallen log from miles.
Like a pickup stick game, but you were walking on the top.
Yeah.
So back to the movement. What are someone who's a beginner coming in? What are some movements that you would suggest they start with? Because a lot of them are like, well, I've just ran. And they're like, where do I start,
Yeah, I think probably the best thing anybody can do is just do a squat. Learn how to squat well.
Yeah.
And then once you learn how to squat, you can do what's called a thruster. And then, like if I'm stuck on a desert island, thruster's my jam.
Yeah.
Because you can do it heavy, you can do it light. And anybody that's done them, dang, Gina, like they get you going.
Yeah.
They're brutal. Yeah. So I think learning how to squat well.
So what would that look like?
What does that look like?
You gonna show people?
Yeah.
So 4 things. Might look easier than it is.
Can you
I
film
see
it, Brent?
myself? I'll kind of do
Go
this at the
over
bottom.
here.
Yeah. So 4 things. You still see me? Good.
Yeah.
Weight in your heels. This way. Perfect. Cool. So 4 things to think about. 1 is depth, hips below your knees. 2 is heels, so it should be in your heels. 3 is your knees should be over your toes. So this way. You don't want them in. You want them out. And then the last one, the hard one, is your back should stay flat at the bottom. And that's probably going to be a little easier.
That's the hard one for me.
Yeah. So finding not just rock bottom, but a place where we can hold that position, our back stays flat, is going to be kind of the key. So that's like, if you can learn how to do that without any weight and then start to add weight to that, that's one of the best things you could do.
So starting with weights, not a good idea, right?
So, we want to think about mechanics first. Probably like when you shoot a bow, right? You have to learn mechanics, and then we need to be consistent with that. And then we would add intensity. And again, I don't know anything about hunting, but you got to learn how to do it well before you do it a lot.
Yeah.
And then before you do it quickly.
Yes.
So same thing, learn how to do it well. And then once you find yourself doing it well, start to add a little bit of weight, see how we can maintain those mechanics. And then I can think about adding more weight or doing that quickly as I'm able to do that.
And that's what you kind of said today when we were doing that WOD. Lower reps at proper quality form.
Yeah. Quality over quantity.
A lot better than higher reps at poor form.
And think of it as the same way, like I'm sure when you guys start rucking, you have a heavy pack. If you have your pack set on you improperly, it's going to load your system the wrong way.
Completely.
And it bangs your body up. It's the same thing with the movement in the gym. We can do it well and we can do it right, and it'll be long-lasting, and we'll have a lot of result from that. Or we can do it poorly and start to find ourselves just having aggravated issues.
Well, you're not a huge man.
No.
Like,
it's okay.
I mean, but you're incredibly strong. It's like Mighty Mouse here. So,
so what are you? What's your size? Just so people can.
With my shoes on, I'm 5'5", and on a big day, I weigh 145 pounds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's still 140 because I think you gained a little bit of muscle like a few years ago.
Yeah, and even
you've come back down to.
Yeah, that was kind
range.
of like my last year at the CrossFit Games. I didn't weigh myself because I didn't want to know how much I weighed. So I'd be like, I weigh 152 pounds, but really I was like 141. Yeah.
Okay. And how much is your back squat at that weight?
Woo!
400. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That is legit.
So tell.
But you're like close to our age or.
Yeah, I'm 37.
Okay.
38 in March, so it's 37 and a half.
Okay.
Whoa, dang.
I'm 38.
I know,
I'm 38. I know. We're feeling it.
He's the old man.
Yeah.
My hair fell out,
42?
turning
41?
gray.
42.
Almost 42.
Yeah.
So
you're 41, Brian.
It just feels
But you're
like
in your
I'm closer to
42nd
42.
year.
Yeah.
So really,
That's what I'm thinking too.
Don't round up, dude. Do not round up.
So I heard Kelly Starrett say one time that he doesn't really come across people with knee problems, bad knees or knee pain that can do a proper squat. And I kind of found that to be true as well. But most people I meet for the first time and I say, learn how to do a squat, start there. Their squat is awful.
Yeah, it's rugged.
And they're completely, it's gone.
Yeah.
And so I try to encourage people to learn that.
Yeah.
How can people learn it? Where do they get that information? Because
CrossFitSpealler.com.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. Honestly, that's actually, on some of the programming that I do is iconathlete.com, and there's a section there called the Vault, and you can click on the Vault.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh. We just found roly-polies. We have an excellent hunter on our hands.
That's right.
For roly-polies.
Roly-polies. There you go.
Yeah. But if you click on the Vault, there's a little tab there, and there's a bunch of movements that I have up there that you can watch, like a 3 to 5 minute video on how to do that. You can go on CrossFit.com, and it takes a little bit of poking around, but if you look at the movements, you'll find some things in there as well. And those are the two resources that I would look at, because you'll see all different ways to teach the squat.
Yeah.
But the way that CrossFit, the way that I teach the squat is just this really fundamental way where we can have a lot of those pieces that are going to apply toward things outside of the gym as well. Not just this sports specific piece, but like you're saying, Bryce, is like, hey, I'm going to be on a log, and guess what? My knee's probably going to be over my toe, and my hip crease is below my knee.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do about that. And now I have an 80-pound pack on. It's not like I'm going to be able to change the range of motion that I can move. And sometimes you'll see squatting taught differently.
Yeah.
So CrossFit is a really good, fully encompassing way to learn how to do that applies outside the gym.
So we'll put that in the show notes, links to that.
Yep.
And so anyone listening can go to the show notes and click on that. And
it's also a bonus because he usually shows you improper form too.
Yeah, I try to give you guys an example of what it looks like maybe done less than ideal or poorly, and then what you want to do it well, and hopefully fix it as well. Give you some cues or some ways to think about that to fix it.
So one of the things that Bryce and I have noticed, when we're watching you in the games, like I said, you're not a huge guy, but you're still moving heavy loads, and for your body weight, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And your capacity to maintain that form. I think a lot of the reason that you're that good is just your movement is spectacular.
Thanks,
it's
man.
efficient.
Very efficient.
It has to be. Yeah.
Right.
For a guy my size, it has to be. And that's the same thing anything should be, right? Like, again, going back to like hunting, I'm sure there's a way to draw your bow and hold it so that you can stay there longer than not.
Well, and you watch some of the athletes that are just, polar bears, just beasts,
monsters,
and they can get away with like less efficient movement and to an extent and be competitive on some of those movements. But a guy that's your size, there's no room for, and so we tend to follow the small guys to see how they're, how they move, because their movement is so good.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a huge piece. Again, just gets back to the mechanics piece of things. And anybody that moves well, I think sometimes people are like, well, I don't know how to identify that, but You know what I mean? You can look at one person move and another person move and be like, that looks efficient and something looks weird with that.
Yeah.
And trust that. Trust that instinct. When you watch someone run down the street, you're like, well, that guy has never run before in his life, or that guy knows what he's doing. Right. Same thing with anything else.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. That's a perfect roly-poly home.
That is
Good
a little...
job.
So,
does it take a while for people to get like spatial awareness?
Yeah, some people.
And should they use a mirror, not a mirror?
You can if you want to. I'm kind of more a fan of a video because you can learn how to move your body in space without the help of a mirror. Sometimes even the depth perception is tough with a mirror. But a little bit like Brian was saying, if you find that you're one of those people that's like kind of far gone, don't panic. It's not that you never could do it. It's just that you lost it somewhere along the way. And they'll often say for people that are kind of further gone, it can take up to 3 years just to develop like a good, what we call mature air squat. And even for those of us that do it well, it's still a journey to get better.
To gain that range of motion.
Yeah, range of motion, position, all those things.
I've said this before on this podcast, I was a missionary in Japan for 2 years. And when I was there, they would sit in the squat position, and they'd be down here hanging out like at the 7-Eleven, and they just be smoking cigarettes. But they'd sit there, and they would and you just talk. Well, I got there, and I was like on my toes, and I was like, and after a minute, I'm like, dude, how are you doing this? I'd last just a couple seconds, and so it was my goal over like every day I was squatting, trying to get, plus the toilet was a squatter too. So I'm like, get to the toilet, and I had to grab the pipe so I wouldn't fall over, and you can't relax. And I was like, now when I hit the woods, man, I can just squat and just sit there for
good to go.
Yeah, 15, 20
Get out
minutes.
Your phone, check your social media.
Completely, like nothing. It's like
on the top of the mountain, you got.
And people will see me like sitting there doing some stuff at the tent or starting the fire, and I'm just down there, and they're like, "How are you doing that?" And I'm like, "It's a super comfortable position to be in for a long time, but it took a while to get there."
It was
years.
funny. I was sitting over there squatting, and I was helping Myla over there, and she do her stickers, and she's like, "You're squatting."
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, I am. How's it look?" I'm like,
That's great. That's great.
And that's the one thing I noticed with little kids, like people who want to know how to do it in proper form. All little kids do it automatically in proper form. That's what I was watching. I was like, holy crap, that little kid just sits down there playing in a perfect squat. And they don't do that. Our kids will get on the edge of the counter at home and go down and sit in the cupboard. And I'm like,
we all had it
real
at one
safe
point.
there.
Yeah.
we did.
Right?
Bryce had been doing CrossFit for a while, like a year and a half or so, and I was slow to get
I think
involved.
I came in like 2010.
Nice.
Nine.
Yeah.
So just a few years.
I was pregnant with baby number 4, and he was getting like 6-pack, super buff, and I was getting fatter and fatter. It was not fair.
Bryce is over there doing muscle ups, and I show up, and I'm like, I can do that. No, I couldn't do that. And so it's like
P90X.
doing P90X a lot, at home
I tried to get him to do it.
I think you did.
I did do one, but I shouldn't have been doing one.
It wasn't until there was one workout that was heavy core stuff, and he was like, "Man, you killed me." And he's like, "I'm gonna try that now."
Well, I could see after. Plus, it was fun. It was just fun. It was different all the time.
That's why I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
It feels more like
can
sport.
I do it? Yes.
Yeah, it's more like sport than it is working out.
I go to his house though pretty soon after I'm geeking out on it, and I'm watching you and Froning and others, and I'm watching Kelly Starrett and Mobility Wad and things like that, and I'm looking at Bryce's squat, and I'm like, Dude, that's ugly.
Yeah.
That's ugly, man.
I had to redo the.
Like,
I had to
bro,
go back to basics on it.
So I was filming it, and I'm like, we dropped the loads way lower, and he had to start over and build up. But he had plateaued forever, just wasn't getting, and his knees were hurting.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no wonder they're hurting, man. Like, that's just wrong. And I think a lot of people think they're doing squats right.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're like, this is bad for your knees. You got to stop doing squats. It's bad for your knees.
Yeah.
And really, it's good for your knees if you're doing it right. And so we filmed Bryce, and slowly, it didn't take long either. Once we retooled it, and then all of a sudden, the loads were going super high. The amount he could lift was way over what it was before.
For sure. Yeah, mechanics are a big deal. It's efficiency of movement.
Yeah.
The more efficiently you move, the more efficiently a bar moves. It's like it's profound, the difference that it has.
We didn't go to a gym or get any coaching, but there's so much stuff online. Like
we had our online coach.
Yeah, right here, Chris Spealler, and we would watch.
Seriously.
And we would watch. We'd play YouTube in the yard, and then I would record Bryce, and we would look at the two, and I'm like, yeah, it's not it.
I mean, we go to a lot of those original ones on the main site.
Yeah.
You know, you had Pat Barber, and you had some of those.
And we would try to find progressions,
right?
And which a progression is just like starting out at a correct movement up to the where you can hit the movement, and then try to work your way up. Is that how you would kind of explain? How would you explain it?
Yeah, for sure. Thinking about one thing is easier than thinking about 10. So focusing, depending on what works well for you or your athlete, or you just focus on one thing. And if it's a squat, it might be like, hey, can I get my hips below my knees? I'm not going to worry about anything else yet. I'm like, well, okay, I can do that. So now can I do that with my weight and my heels? Well, no, I can't do that. Okay, well, maybe I can try not squatting as low and see if I can keep my weight in my heels. Okay, that's better. You know, and then after I have those two things, can I keep my knees out? And then lastly, can I do those three things with my back flat? And that order can happen differently depending on how people learn. But, yeah, a progression is ridiculously helpful for anybody to start to learn. And it's also really friendly. It acts as like an introductory way, a scaling option in some ways.
It's humbling, too, though, to, like he said, when someone, because you suck, your squat needs work. Is like, what do you mean?
I've been working hard for 2 years.
It's like have to go back and be a beginner.
Well, I remember.
But that's where you got to, say, okay, I'm willing to accept criticism here.
I remember being
because I'm going to improve.
This badass, I'm like, dude, I can press like 180 overhead, overhead press. Right, and I'm like, it's like this. Right, my arms, elbows are out. I'm like, do you see that, dude? And then I'm always having these problems in my shoulders. And then I'm watching guys like doing it with their elbows in more, and I'm like, so I try it the way properly it should look. Yeah. And I'm looking at Carl Paoli and Kelly, and they're showing some movement. So then I try to do it that way, and I'm like, dude, I can barely do 90 pounds. I mean, it's half what I can do when I'm doing it wrong. Yeah. So, I'm like, well, you're just going to have to develop the muscle in the proper movement pattern and believe that down the road it's going to have, ego you just leave at the door. And
especially if you have a good base level of strength. It's like a lot of guys out there, they're probably just not willing to check their ego because it's like, well, I can squat 300, but I look like crap. But if you actually did it well, you could probably squat like 50, 60 more pounds than that. So just back up the truck. It doesn't mean you're not strong. Yeah. It just means like, okay, how can I maximize my strength? And a lot of that is how well we move. So now if I learn how to move efficiently, back it up, lighten the weight, I already have this base level of strength, so now let's apply that to position, and weights go up pretty quick.
I'm a big fan of complex movements and heavy weight. I find that trying to convince a lot of my hunting buddies in that kind of hunting community to use a barbell is like sacrilegious. It's like barbells are for
power lifters.
Yes,
whatever. Like I'm not a power lifter. I hike
I hike. I'm outdoorsman.
I'm an outdoorsman.
Barbells are just lame.
Yeah,
or for someone else. So. What do you say to that? Because and I've said this before, until I picked up a barbell, I just didn't put on that much muscle.
Yeah, you won't. You won't without any kind of external load. It's just impossible, right? And that's another thing. Like if you have an athlete that's not strong or an outdoorsman that's not strong, those guys wither away because of how much work you have to put in. How many calories do you burn by rucking out an elk? It's like, that's tremendous. So one, are you eating enough? Two, do you have the muscle to support it? So I think it's one of those things too where like, I don't want to sound cheesy or anything, man, but like what if crap goes down out there?
Yeah.
You know, and like what if your buddy's under a rock or under a log or under whatever?
It's
and
real.
like, yeah, and that stuff happens, you know, and it's like, what if you can't pick it up because you never exposed yourself to anything like that? Well, that kind of sucks. You know what I mean? But what if we give ourselves a chance to be exposed to some of these things, not all the time, but some of the time, so we can increase or have this big, well-rounded fitness. Strength is one of many things that we want to be good at. And then all of a sudden, well, I'm not so concerned about bumping into anything, long duration or heavy weight or high rep or like I really don't care what you throw at me. I may not be the best at it, but I can do it well.
I saw a video or Instagram or something that Pat Sherwood had posted about doing a dead man carry. Is that what it was called?
Like picking the body up.
Yeah.
And I was like, how in the world would I do that if you were hurt? You know, so we're in the...
Did you try?
Yes. So we're in the living room, 10 by 10. And I'm doing it. And I was like, oh, okay. I could do it with the proper function and movement of how he showed how to do it. But otherwise, there's not a prayer.
Right.
Otherwise, I get to burn in the fire.
Yes. Seriously.
Good knowing you.
And that's where I think, like, for people that have these preconceived notions of CrossFit, I understand, I get it. Because so much of what has happened is people see it on ESPN and they see the competition. Yeah. But what they don't know is, like, that's not what it was designed for.
Right.
CrossFit wasn't started as a sport. It turned, a piece of that turned into it. But really, the real purpose and who really, honestly, kind of allowed CrossFit to take off were military, law enforcement, first responders, people that were like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to encounter when I go outside of the gym, and I need to be prepared for my job, or I need to be prepared for battle, or whatever.
Life. Yeah, that's what we say too.
Kids.
And it's just like all of a sudden, I have this fitness program that's going to cover everything. And it's so cool because it's the jack of all trades and it's the master of none. It's like the Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, that's what it is. It's the jack of all trades, it's the master of none. And that's kind of what CrossFit is. It's the Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what it is. It's like you want to be good at everything and not great at one thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think anything, I can think of, again, I don't know hunting, I don't know that well, but I can't think of anything better. That would fit the mold of somebody that doesn't know what they're going to bump into when they go outside the confines of their gym, their home for a morning, an afternoon, or a week.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Yeah. I had a desk job for way too long. And what I found, too, was I herniated a disc. I played basketball like 4 or 5 days a week. I was addicted, right? So I played in the city league and things like that. And I never lifted weights, really, except for some barbell stuff. I was good at curls. I do a little bit of overhead press with some barbells, light ones. But I had some really severe back problems for about a year or two in my early 30s. I'm like, what is going on? Pick my daughter up out of the car seat and turn to give her to my wife, and I'm like stuck for like 3 days. And, herniated disc. It was weird. And It took like a year to sort of get myself out of that, and I was doing like little physical therapy things that were basic at the and I was really depressed, and I was like, man, I'm too young for this.
Yeah.
And then I started, my kind of thoughts were more traditional, reading Men's Health. Okay, I need to do more sit-ups, so I started doing things to try to strengthen my back, but it wasn't until I started doing squats and deadlifts that the whole thing changed.
Weird, right?
Weird.
Yeah. It's contrary. People are like, no, I hurt my back. I can't use it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's maybe not a good idea because your back's a gigantic muscle. It's like that's why. I mean, we see a lot of that in the gym and the affiliate level where a lot of people do have back issues and they never have done anything to strengthen it, like a deadlift or a squat or anything like that. And then all of a sudden they start to do it with, the right movements and the right weight. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, my back feels better.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's cool. Because you're using your back. You're using your abs. You're using your core.
Well, Bryce started getting all these abs, but I'm doing push-ups till the cows or sit-ups till the cows come home, dude.
Ain't happening.
And I'm like, where's my abs? And here Bryce is, clean and jerk, 225 pounds or whatever, getting it overhead. Well, that's creating some serious core muscle stability that all the sit-ups in the world weren't going to give me, right? And so I think it was just a whole paradigm shift.
You have to shift it in your head.
Yeah, Sarah went through that. She was a runner, and it was like, took you probably 6 months or a year to.
Yeah.
And now she's like running for the birds.
Now I'm like, forget it.
I took a while to get on the same boat.
Wagon.
I'm like,
she was a walker. She wanted to walk for an hour a day, and I'm like, okay, go walk. I'm gonna be done in 20 minutes here, and then I'm gonna head back in the house.
But he was like lifting, and he's trying to get me to get into it. I'm like, I don't want to look like that.
She didn't want to get bulky,
this jacked, huge girl. Look like a dude, and clearly that has not happened. I was like, that would take some serious time and effort, and it's just not going to happen. But I have gotten leaner and stronger, and I can do that. Like lift the baby out of the car seat. Those suckers are heavy.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Like 30 pounds, just carting them to the grocery store.
Right. I just remember when I started, we had CrossFit. He started CrossFit on the side of a track in a rec facility here in Park City. So it was just like a handful of people just doing stuff with dumbbells and whatever else. And I just remember like being smashed by like a 10-pound dumbbell, like just doing like man makers or like whatever. And I'm like, this is only 10 pounds. Like something is wrong. Something is wrong here. And I thought, like you go out and run, whatever. Like I've done ultra marathons where you just go for 50 miles. And no, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it like,
I don't know.
Yeah. It just applies, It doesn't, you don't need a lot. You don't need, you could have 2 sets of dumbbells and you can get stupid fit.
Kettlebells.
Stupid fit. Yeah.
I really like kettlebells.
Do not need a lot of stuff.
Right. We started,
you guys had a pull-up bar and a $60 set of rings.
Yeah.
Some cheap barbells that we jumped in the grass.
We did get a rope.
With the metal plates. We just ditched them in the grass until we graduated finally.
Actually, you started with some stones. Like he'd be outside with like yard cloth, moving these stones.
Like, well, I got to drag something.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
It was like, let's try and...
Right.
I mean, that's it, though.
Figure out something.
Yeah. People like, they're like, I need all this gear. So. It's like, there's a time and a place for that. But the reality is, you can get so fit with so little.
Yeah.
And I mean, stupid fit.
Yeah.
Not, Globo Gym. Really fit.
I've got a question to sort of shift it a little bit. Myself, personally, all my CrossFit and stuff and what I've been doing for the last few years, 4 years, 5 years, has enabled me to put a backpack on, in-hike far and with a heavy load day after day. When it comes to like a WOD, like today's WOD sucked.
Whoa, right.
My WODs that I'm really good at are really like...
this was a great day to come.
Let's body weight.
It's hero month, so it didn't matter what day you came. It was going to be a bad one.
Totally.
Body weight movements and running are less my specialty than like give me a barbell and let me like move heavy loads fast. And usually if it's a heavy load and I can just keep moving it and moving it and moving it and moving it and I excel there. But when it comes to like, let's say the backpack's 40 pounds and we're trucking to the top, everybody beats me.
Yeah.
How do I get better at that? Because I want to be the guy that can move heavy loads all day long and then recover also overnight or be ready to do that again day after day. But I also want to be the guy that can do body weight and get there first.
Variety. You have to work your weaknesses. We all love to do the stuff that we like to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, man, I like muscle ups. I'm good at them.
Yeah.
If that's all I do, it doesn't make me good at anything else. You know, and again, it's like that's the cool part of it that is intangible is that you can't replicate hard work, right? If I want to get better, I have to go through stuff that I don't necessarily like or I'm not good at. If I want to get stronger, I need to do this. If I want to get better at that, I need to do this. And it doesn't mean that's all that we do. It just means that we need to pay attention to doing those things.
I like that.
Yeah, variety.
Work. I tell myself, like, we had a train to hunt competition. They do this it's sort of like a CrossFit Games. It's a bow hunting competition.
Yeah.
Where you do like, it's a race.
Yep.
And you run up a mountain, you got a 20-pound pack on, you get to this spot, you're breathing heavy, you got to draw your bow, shoot. Then you got to do like 20 box jumps, and then you run to the next station, and then you got to shoot while you're still under all that pressure, breathing heavy, trying to calm yourself, get calm. You shoot, and then you run to the next station, and it might be like bar facing
burpees,
and then you run to the next one, and you go through this course, right? And then there's like an 80-pound or 100-pound meat haul where you run like you move.
That's cool.
1.5 miles.
You would win. Get your shooting down.
But
you got to be able to shoot.
We'll see what happens later.
But you run like 1.5 miles with the pack, and so there's a little competition for archers to also kind of combine. The guy that kind of came up with it used to own a CrossFit gym, and he's totally into it, and it's really cool. That whole thing has been a lot of fun to be a part of, and it sort of blends this CrossFit and archery community together, and some of the neatest people I've met are there. And
it's kind of the same community feel, too.
Oh, that's cool.
As like the CrossFit gym.
Yeah. But I forgot where I was going with that.
I don't know either, but it was good. Good topic.
Thanks.
I think you need to move into one thing. I think
that was the thing I was going to ask was, so I just did that, right? And mental toughness is like this part and the work. No one can just show up and just be good. I mean, it's just too hard. You have to like prepare and work for it. But even after I know a lot of guys that are really fit, but once they get going, they don't push. They don't dig deep and push through it. Where does that come from?
I think you like the
pain. I think one of the first memories I have videos that it was regionals somewhere up there in Washington, I think.
Oh yeah.
And they programmed 30 overhead squats for time at 135 pounds.
Oh yeah. It was that with double unders, yeah.
And, and with the double unders. And you did that, and I remember I was like, dude, this guy is like overhead squatting his weight, and he did it unbroken. I was like, Katie, you got to watch this.
Yeah, I watched.
I'm like, it's his weight. I can't even do my own weight once. Yeah. I'm like, I can't even do what he did 30 times, and I outweigh him by like 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Is that, how much of that was mental toughness just to...
Yeah, it is. It is. I think part of it's like, growing up wrestling. Again, I'm biased. I think wrestling is probably the hardest sport on the planet. Having to lose weight, it's just me. There's no one else to blame it on.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So I learned... Funny, I never kind of figured it out in college until I kind of got out into the CrossFit Jam. But I learned how to kind of cope with that there. And I think there's a couple things. For me, specific to CrossFit, one of the things, and sport in general, one of the things I never want to say, and I even think this with life, is I never want to say, like, what if? I hate that. I hate that feeling. What if I would have done this? Or what if I would have just tried this? Or what if? And there's very few things that I say what if about. Very few things. And that gives me a lot of peace of mind. So that helps give me drive, because I don't want to ever say what if. Right? Yeah. Like, what if I would have tried it again? Or what if I would have tried to do this to be more well-prepared? And then once you start to get into those experiences where they are hard, some simple things that can help. And we do this. We talk about this at a CrossFit competitors course, and just anything, any kind of sport. Sounds kind of silly, maybe a little bit cheesy, but having what you call like a mantra, or just positive self-talk. it's so easy to be like, this is so hard. I'm like, gosh, I hate it. We want to do that. We want to voice that. We tell other people, oh, it's so hard. Oh, my legs hurt. My knees are killing me. It's like we just want to vocalize that. And we want to whine and we want to complain and we want people to sympathize with us. But those thoughts can start to create attitude and action. So recognizing that those thoughts aren't bad, because we all have them, right? It's not like you're wrong for having them. But then what do I do with them? And replacing them with positive self-talk. So for me, a lot of times, even though I was by myself in a workout, I'd say, like, we've got this. It's just me, but who's we? It's like, no, like, we've got this. We've got this. Other things that I would just say is it's there. Like, because I put in the work.
Yeah.
I put in the work, and I knew it's there. So I know it hurts. I know it's hard, but it's there. Little things like that to change your perspective as soon as you feel like the negative comes in is tremendous, but it is also, it's a learned thing.
Like today we were running, it seemed like it was an endless run.
Oh my gosh.
Blazing heat.
It was a 5K after the push-ups and pull-ups.
And the stupid elevation is brutal.
Yeah. And the temperature.
Yeah.
It's like 20 degrees hotter.
The dry wind, that's what killed me. There's no moisture in the air.
Like the oven door.
It was awesome. But when we're running, I was sitting there, and I remember, like, you're running, and there's a moment where you let the thought creep in, like, dude, I just want to quit. I just want to walk. And it's like, for me, when that happens to me, I get this little fear, adrenaline bump, like, no, you can't quit. This like, it's creepy. It's like this fear for me.
Failure, right?
Failure, yeah. And then I switch my thought process to, this is easy. I got this. Yeah, it's no problem. It's just work.
And some people are like that. Some people are driven by that, and some people aren't. And I think that's where people have to decide the why. Hey, why? Like, what's my purpose for doing this? And today I was running on the way back, and I was wearing a vest when I did it, and I was like, I had to make it back in time for class, so I was like, I gotta hustle, And I was running, and I was like, I'm finally at a point where, like, I genuinely, like, this is my, I can check out. I'm just checking out. I can just work hard, and I'm not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
I found somebody's iPod on the floor. It was a purple iPod Shuffle. I was like, I'm just going to listen to that. And it was not motivating music. But I was like, it's better than me listening to the sound of my breath. And I was like, this is awesome. Because I'm not worried about anything. It's my time. And some people are like that with music. Some people are maybe like that with hunting.
That's what I was going to say is IT's Matt Anderson. He's a CrossFit athlete. He's on a team. They're trying to get to the games, and but he competed and trained to hunt. And he's a friend of mine, and IT. He's like, wait. We're all at the starting line to run this race, and he's like, wait. And he's always getting his headphones in and trying to find his jam before he runs. And I've tested running with my jam and without. Dude, I am an animal when I got the music in.
Right?
Like, my thoughts they never once slip into that negative it's sort of like a crutch. Like, the music, I just block everything out and I just go. Right. Without the music, I have a hard time blocking it out and going. But my capacity, I find, is very high when I'm blocking all that stuff out, and it's easier with music.
Yeah.
And so trying to do it without music.
It's the same thing. Like, it's easier when you're rocking out all that crap with your friends.
Yeah.
Because what are you doing?
Talking.
You're probably talking like, hey, man, like, you're telling them what the story was like, how it happened.
Reliving the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden we forget like how hard it is.
Yeah.
But you can do that on your own. It's just harder. You have to learn. You have to practice those things. You have to go into those circumstances and situations prepared. Like, okay, I know I might stumble into some things that are hard. I know it might be hard. One, I kind of enjoy that because that's why I do this. And two, when it does get gnarly, these are the things that I'm going to say to myself. Yeah, big help.
It's just cool. A lot of times I found the mental toughness in CrossFit. Like when you finish something, you go look at the whiteboard and you're like, I just did that.
Yeah, right? Big deal.
I finished.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that looked not really doable. And when you're done, and so do a lot of people gain that have you found in CrossFit mental toughness by looking back and seeing, oh my gosh, I accomplished that?
Yeah, one of the things that the founder, his name's Greg Glassman, one of the things he says is the greatest adaptation is what happens between the ears. And that's true. You know, what we do in here, it sounds silly, might sound cheesy again, but what I do in the gym has direct application outside of the gym, not just in my fitness, but in my integrity. Yeah. Do I count my reps legit? Do I do things well? In my mental toughness, if I'm willing to suffer in here, often with a group of people, we create cool relationships, and I can work hard outside of the gym. If I know that there's an end in sight when things get tough in relationships or in my work, you know, a desk job, I'm prepared for that. And that is irreplaceable. And I think most people that do CrossFit, we're probably never like Division I athletes, right? And they've
Soccer
never experienced that. Yeah. So this is their way of learning what that's like. And it's not intentional. They don't know that.
They weren't in the military. They didn't have to, like...
I mean, how many people do you know that were like that? And how many people do I know that come to the gym that
their lives change, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
we have one girl here, Susie. She tells us, she's like, I was never an athlete in high school. Like, I was never, she's like, I never played sports. I never ran. She said, I love this.
Yeah.
We have people that have run their first mile with us.
I did my first pull-up
with
CrossFit.
I mean, it's like,
I couldn't.
Kidding me?
I was like the weakling sister. You know, nobody asked me to help move furniture.
I remember when I was at their house, and it was like the WOD was 100 pull-ups.
Oh yeah.
For time, and they were.
I think that was the L pull-up one. One
you guys
L
did L
pull-ups for
pull-up.
time.
And
She just did them as just pull-ups, however way.
However I could get them,
sure.
just without a band.
And at the time, you know, I was more diligent in my fitness. Gritty Bowmen
we were
is
all
like
more diligent in our fitness before Gritty Bowmen came along.
It's hard to balance, you know, career and all that, and all these other interests and fitness and kids. The last year or so, it's been like maintenance, sort of trying just to keep some fitness.
Yeah.
But I remember doing those pull-ups with her, and she's cranking out all these strict pull-ups. L-sit, and she's like at 25, I think she did completely strict. I'm like,
I did.
My
not
sister's
do
a sissy. Like she's like not strong ever. And it'd been years, and she'd been doing CrossFit.
That was
and I was like,
the previous story.
right.
Yeah.
And here she is, this beast, like doing these pull-ups, and I know a lot of girls can't do one pull-up. They're like, girls can't do pull-ups.
Yeah.
You know, so it was pretty cool, and you had to kip like the second 50, I think, but the first 50 were pretty legit. Like, and I was, it just I mean, wow, what a transformation from not being able to do a single pull-up to being able to do.
I don't know, 3 months before I could finally.
Took a while.
And I had
with
to do
bands
well, I didn't have bands at first, and so I would jump to get to about here and then pull up, and then I realized I wasn't getting that, you know, full range. So when we got bands, I was like, oh crap, I have to start all over. Yeah, I was like, I don't have this to here, you know,
swings.
Yeah, and so I had to like start. But we did. I went back, and now I can.
Progression.
Yeah. And then how much does that apply? Still, like, all of a sudden, someone's more confident to do other things.
Yeah.
Both CrossFit stuff and outside the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people, so many women, especially in the gym, like, their perception, their self-esteem, their confidence is like, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, that's what I want to pass on to my kids, because now I'm like, I am the mom, and I am doing these things, and I'm trying new things all the time with CrossFit, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want you guys to try this. Just try it.
Yeah.
Just keep trying it, you know?
Like, how many, I think people are afraid of failure, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, no one has ever gotten anything without failing.
Yeah.
No, I don't know anyone that I've ever met that when they tried to do whatever they set out to do, they didn't fail along the way. And like in CrossFit, I have failed at every major goal that I set in my life. I wanted to be an All-American in wrestling. I missed it by 2 matches. I wanted to win CrossFit Games. I missed it by 2 places. I wanted, you know, I've failed at every major goal that I've set. But are you kidding me? Like that process has made me a better athlete, a better person. You know? And I think people need to realize that's just part of the process, bro.
Yeah, this Gritty Bowmen venture has been a wild ride, and I tell people all the time, it's fairly successful right now, and this has come after a series of failures my whole life. Things I started and failed all the time.
Yeah,
and you just got to keep doing it.
Right.
And I tell people to come
and
out
listen
to
their
this.
sister.
And you learn, though, right? From all those failures, you learn. And that's the thing is, I learned this from that. I'm not going to do this, and I am going to do that. And I learned this about myself and this about working with other people. And
I think it's fear, though. Fear is just it's a horrible thing to have, especially. And when you break it down, it's really not that big a deal.
Yeah. Like, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of what other people are going to think of me.
But you almost, like if I think back in life, you remember those failures and those mistakes, but a lot of times you don't remember the successes.
Yeah, they're defining, right?
And so the failures are like, you know what, I got to do better at that. Mm-hmm. And so, but sometimes there's successes and you're like, I don't really remember that.
Right. Yeah. And we say that all the time. When we go back to the CrossFit thing, people are like, oh, the CrossFit Games, and they're awesome. Don't get me wrong, but I'll be like, okay, tell me who the top 3 men on the podium were last year. And they're like, Ben Smith. And I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. And then you're like, tell me an inspiring story about someone in your gym. They're like, right here.
Yeah.
And you're like, but they're not successful. You know what I mean? Like they failed. And those are the things that are life-changing. Those are the things that I think, like, even that process, when you go back to hunting, like if it's something you enjoy, like, why stop? You know what I mean? Like, why try it again? And maybe you do it a different way. Maybe it looks different. And I think that that's cool too, is like embracing that. Like maybe it's a different style of hunting, or maybe it's a different way of doing CrossFit. Yeah. Maybe it's not competitive. Maybe it is just working out at the affiliate, just like I do now every day.
Mm-hmm.
So at this stage, what kind of goal? I mean, what is it you work for every day? What's the legacy you want to leave behind?
I think, Sarah and I have had a lot of conversations recently. We have just like a lot of.
We don't know what we're doing.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, really?
It's like.
Oh, good. You haven't got it figured out yet.
Right. Yeah. And I think when I kind of, I had a really good conversation with this guy Ben Bergeron, who's a CrossFit coach, and he coached me for a number of years, and he just said something really, I think, impactful. He said, people that worry about winning. He was talking about the CrossFit Games, and that's all they're focused on. And then he said they get lost in the journey and what really matters. And often that is not the legacy we want to leave behind, but the process, who I was through the process, and the character that was revealed as I went through that process. That is what is lasting, and that is what the legacy that is left behind. So now it's gone from, I used to, with CrossFit, want to leave essentially a legacy of a competitor that was one that was respectful and just showed humility.
Yeah, I mean,
and like poured my heart out.
Certain circumstances, you could have reacted differently. Like
show my walk with Christ, like how that impacts my life.
Right.
So I wanted that to be present. Now I think because I'm not competing, I think I have to be very careful to not get caught up in those things and just work out because I love to. And the legacy that I want to leave behind now, hopefully, as I continue processing through this, is like, hey, I don't need it to be about me. I want it to be about my kids and my family. And I want, if no one remembers my name, I want my kids to know and my wife to know that I was a good, invested dad. And
that's cool.
And that.
Speak of the devil.
Claim, you hit the claim button, hot shot. There you go.
Good job, buddy.
Perfect timing, Ron.
Yeah. So I think that is a huge. One of the things that I saw that really helped me decide not to compete was, those ESPN 30 for 30s. They do these quick little blips, like 30-minute segments or hour segments, and one was on Archie Manning and the Manning family. And it talked about Archie Manning and how he was just this huge, NFL sensation. And then it was about Peyton and Eli and his sons. And he used to go to football games, and all the cameras would start to go find him in the crowd. And he started to wear hats and sunglasses and earmuffs and stuff so they wouldn't recognize him because he wanted it to be about his kids. And I was like, that's so freaking cool that man could be awesome. No, it's not about me. Because how easy is that for all of us? No, I want the spotlight. I want that. Let's be real. It's easy for us to want that. And instead for him to be no, I'm going to intentionally hide in the stands so you can make it about my kids. That's cool.
I like that.
I do too.
Sorry, that was a
when
long
you were
answer.
talking about that, I was thinking I was just at Young Women's Camp with my daughter, and our stake president said, you've heard that statement, there's joy in the journey or whatever. And he said, I want you to turn that around and make it so that you journey in joy.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, you know what? That really is different.
Yep.
That's really profound. I liked that.
I got one question, one I wrote down here.
Yeah.
Who is the one person, just name one person that shaped you into the person you are today? And how they influenced you?
I think probably hands down, unknowingly at the time, I think we're out, buddy. They don't have them. I'll help you afterwards, don't worry. iPad. I think hands down, I went through a lot of stuff in college wrestling, a lot of things that weren't fair, a lot of political things where I had earned a spot on the mat and I wasn't getting it because I wasn't on a full ride. Another kid was, and he was a great kid. He's a really good kid. He didn't do anything. It was more just the coaching staff and things like that. But this one coach that I had, his name's Rocky Bonomo.
He's awesome.
He's hands down probably the most influential man that I've ever had in my life. Just constantly willing to hear me out, constantly willing to support me, always had my back. And not just that, but I don't think he knows the impact that he had on me just by the way that he was as a family man, the way that he was as a husband and a dad, and seeing how he did that. He's probably the most special person in their family in general. Sarah and I, it's there's something there that is super, super special. Yeah, and he's hands down.
Yeah, he's great.
The most influential guy.
And he loves outdoorsy.
Oh,
he is.
I'll have to get hooked on this.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes, he has a whole thing in his yard, targets set up, bears,
he might listen
coyotes.
to
Let's go there.
Yes.
He is.
He is awesome. He had the kids with the bows out when we were visiting a few weeks
and
ago.
His brother, he's got a twin brother,
Hilarious.
And they're passionate.
They are very passionate.
Really?
Oh,
very cool.
They wanted to start a hunting show a long time ago, and I think he even won a Yeti cooler for sending out some video of his deer hunt or something. He's like, look at what I won. So cool.
He's made it.
Yes.
He's got a Yeti
really
cooler.
cool.
Hey, I want a Yeti cooler.
I know,
right?
no doubt.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing yourself with our audience and
I'm glad,
letting us
Sarah,
come
I'm
to
glad
the gym.
you came too.
Me too.
Yay! They wanted me.
I did want you. I wanted you so bad. I was like, you gotta get Sarah on here too.
It's always cool to see the wives, and because you guys are usually their biggest fan and the support group, and putting them
it's
through
not just
fun,
it's
passion.
You're there because of the team.
Yeah, definitely.
What I did would not have been possible without her. So not at all.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, stay gritty.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Stay gritty.
I'm Chris Spealler. You're listening to the Gritty Bowmen podcast, and it's your job to get stupid fit.
Yes.
Okay, Gritty friends. I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If you did, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes, Podbean, or Stitcher. We love reading your reviews. And connect with us on social media if you're on there. Look us up on Facebook and Instagram. And take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive notifications when we upload new videos. We've got a sweet deal with Mountain Ops. You get 20% off on all Mountain Ops supplements, combo packs, and apparel when you type in the word gritty at checkout. If you're a hardcore elk hunter or you want to be, go to the Elk 101 website online and check them out. Our friend Corey Jacobson is killing it with some of the best elk hunting information and entertainment on the web. All right, friends, let me leave you with one other quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It behooves every man to remember that the work of the critic is of altogether secondary importance, and that, in the end, progress is accomplished by the man who does things." We all have a choice. We can be people who do things or people who criticize the work of others. It's pretty simple, really. Get out there and do your thing. Good luck on your hunts, and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.
The other night he was learning he was like, "Hey, Dad, we were eating at Dickie's Barbecue because kids eat for free on Sunday nights."
Nice.
Well, and our reservation at the other place was 40 minutes. So we were like, forget it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Dad," he was eating his mac and cheese, and he's like, "Dad, is this carbs?" I was like, "That's exactly right. That's carbohydrates." And he's looking at his brisket. He's like, "This is protein." I was like, "Yep, and fat." But yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
Nice.
nice.
Went through the whole meal.
I know, it's cool.
Buddy.
At least he kind of knows where meat comes from.
Yeah.
Because there's a serious disconnect out there. So who's this?
This is Myla.
Myla.
She has an owie on her knee from hiking.
Oh, wow.
Oh, just the other day?
Yes.
Even she's got muscles. It's hard to sell them on the idea of fitness in terms of like a CrossFit style.
But you need it, especially for bow hunting, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know anything about hunting, but all I know is like bow hunting, like you gotta
Seriously.
You can't be eating your donuts. You can, but it's not gonna work out well for you.